people across the country have been protesting the use of excessive force. After several shootings, police departments are being forced to reevaluate their policies. And last month, an op-ed was released on the Phoenix Police Department.
Yeah, both the police chief and the city manager weighed in on reform.
And this morning, Chief Jeri Williams is talking about what she said in the piece and how she hopes to change the future. So let's check in with Javier, who is live this morning with the chief. Good morning, Javi.
Good morning, guys. It was back in May, the death of George Floyd at the hands of police officers really sparked outrage, not only locally, but across the nation as well as globally. And to this day, we continue to see protests both locally and nationally as well. Now, some higher ups have gotten together and decided that change needs to happen, and it starts here at the Phoenix Police Department. I want to bring in Chief Jeri Williams, who has been part of that all along, not only locally but nationally as well. I first want to ask you about this op-ed piece that was written with you and the city manager. Now, in it, you state, in the U.S., health outcomes, life expectancy, incarceration rates, wealth accumulation, and yes, police interactions have racial and ethnic differences. How did you come to that conclusion? And from a police standpoint, what exactly are you speaking of?
Yeah, so what we're speaking about is everything that we're actually listening to and hearing, either in the demonstrations day to day, online, in social media. But I also want to say to that piece also, we're trying to be better. We're trying to give people something tangible to see that we're actually listening to what they're saying. So when we talk about those differences, it's evident. It's here. Let's face it. Let's face it head on. In the Phoenix Police Department, I have said this in multiple interviews. When things happen, we change, we adjust, we learn from it. And this is a pivotal time in law enforcement where people are saying enough is enough. Give us some tangible change.
And some of that change is already in place here.
Yes.
You've made several changes over the last several months. Can you speak to that?
All right, so instead of just standing by waiting for things to happen, what we've done is we've made adjustments in many of our policies. So the carotid control technique is no longer authorized. We've adjusted the mandate for shooting at moving vehicles. We've added the duty to intervene. We've added the duty to render aid. So I can say this because they have Mercedes sitting next to me, but if Mercedes and Jerry are two officers in a car, and I see Mercedes doing something inappropriate, I am required by policy to do something about it. So I think it's important to let folks know that we hear you, that we're working towards it, but I'm also not going to stand here and be hypocritical and say that everything is perfect, because it's not. We still have to report use of force data that I can't report right now, not because we don't want to, but because I have systems that aren't talking and aren't giving us information. So we have employees working on that day and night, trying to make sure that that happens.
There's also some changes ahead that you have already planned and will play out over the next several months.
Right. So what's coming through the city, because we were one of the few major cities that didn't have civilian oversight, if you will, over the police department, the council is working through the process of engaging and building the Office of Accountability and Transparency that will look at investigations, look at our policies, procedures, and practices, and then give to the chief, or give to me, suggestions on what to do and how to mitigate and how to manage from a community member perspective versus a policing perspective.
Obviously, not everybody will be happy with some of these changes.
For sure.
What are you hearing from your fellow officers who think perhaps they're being unfairly targeted or even plea?
So what I say to that is I'm keenly aware of the sacrifices that my employees make every day. I literally marvel at the fact that they put this uniform on, that they go to work, that they take calls for service in the communication center, that they're still going out with the crime lab. But at the end of the day, we're still here to provide a service. Our mission is to ensure the safety and security of each person in the community. And whether you're with plea, whether you're with whomever, it's still our responsibility. And I see that in my employees every day.
You are taking this message nationally as well.
Yes.
You have been part of a group, and they've been working on police reform and racial injustice. What sparked this? I mean, these have been loud cries for years. What prompted this whole thing now?
So I think what resonated so much with everyone across the country is how powerful these demonstrations have been. And quite frankly, it really caused us to take a look at what we were doing and how we were doing it. The spotlight was on policing. And no longer are people just going to tolerate behavior from officers that's just unacceptable, that's inhumane. So I know mayors, face some of the same pressures as police chiefs. I know elected officials face some of the same pressures. And I think that pressure created many series of reforms, including local and national, that you're talking about in the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
I have to ask you, from a standpoint of not only being an African-American police chief, but a mother of 2 black sons, how much pressure do you feel?
I think, Javi, we all feel pressured. Mine's a different kind of pressure because I have a multitude of lenses to look from, the wife lens, the mom lens, the police chief lens. I'm hopeful that people see authenticity. I'm hopeful that eventually people will give us a little bit of grace to get better and to really show folks what we've done. Transparency is critical. Transparency is key. And we're going to step up to the challenge.
We thank you very much for being open, for having these conversations, not only here locally, but nationally as well. As you heard it right there, these protests sparked them to take a look in the mirror themselves and figure out what was going wrong and what needs to change. And we will continue asking these questions, and they will continue moving forward.